You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello, we're back again with more live coverage on Typhoon Rai. That's the international name, the Philippine name Odette, and I think most people are aware of it by now. A developing typhoon with sustained winds of 80 miles per hour, that's around 130 kilometers per hour, and an estimated central pressure of 980 millibars. This storm closing in on the Philippines slowly but surely. Latest indications showing that landfall may be in around 24 hours time. There could be deviations to that, of course, as Signal 1 and 2 warnings are now in effect for widespread parts of the Visayas and northern Mindanao region of the Philippine Islands. My name's Nathan Foy in the studio once again. I know that we had another live stream last night my time, which would have been this morning in the Philippines, run by Timothy Ringo. Hope that went well. I've not had a chance to see it. But now, and our bottom bar's gone away, there it is once again. We're with me here for at least an hour, maybe we'll run for two, who knows how things will go. And I'm joined by my team this hour, consisting of Farhan, Kenneth, Kin, Zenitsu, and the phone expert. Hello to all of you. Nice to see you all again.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Alright, nice to see you all. Who would like to explain how the storm has developed and changed in the last 24 hours?
So maybe I'll start with me first. So currently it is still mainly in the category 1 status, and it's still struggling to open an eye, but still with very cold cloud tops and a pretty decent CDO still. So I'll explain what happened over the past 24 hours. Here's the loop of last 19 hours. So last night by upper level Shear, but it is still substantially developing in the past 24 hours, although the appearance of CDO may not be changing that much, improving that much. It is because, as you can see here, it's still very a decent amount of upper level Shear, which although it Rai will continue to improve its lower level structure, although the infrared may not look as good, but if it goes to the stage of opening an eye, as you can see from this crops extracted infrared image, you can see a line that I drawn orange. You can see the apparently upper level Shear of higher than 300 millibar level, which means is restricting the outflow to the eastern side, which is the main reason I think that it struggled to open an eye recently. Well, it has been the case, but the western, the outflow to the west is very good still.
Yep, that's quite clear.
Yep, but structure-wise, so the convection keep firing from southern quadrant, dropping towards the northern side, and it quite struggled to rob at the western side still, and it has been doing such a repetitive behavior over the past 24 hours or more, which means structure-wise is still improving a little, that it is still intensify not so much, like in this lower level microwave, you can see this is something last night from from SSMIS. You can see eye wall structure, not bad, but also weak at the north. And at 22Z, which is 14 hours ago, starting to roping a bit, but still there's some weak points at the southwestern and northeastern side, and continue to rock. And again, the mid-level, still weakness at the north, strong at the south, and consistently being the case still, and struggle to improve. Although in this imagery, you may see the northern side improving a bit. And it is also seen, this is a high-level microwave, 183 gigahertz. You can see the upper level becomes a bit better, or struggle by high-level shear, such that it struggle to open the eye and then go off, and then take off and rapidly intensify, which it isn't that the case still. We still expect a category 3, a very reasonable forecast still, as it strike Visayas or Mindanao mainly. I mean, it did a bit better, and well, I'll see how it is going. So let's go to forecast, shall we? This is the agency forecast.
Yep.
Pretty uniform, that it will move west and then strike Visayas, and then leave the Philippines enter South China Sea, possibly with some re-intensification. I mean, possible. And here, as I said, in the last live stream, there will be a wave of northeast monsoon coming here. Here's the 19th, and I'll expect this will be a point in the 20th, where the uncertainty begins to kick in as it moves to the north, where it weakens. Many agencies still forecast continue northeastward movement, like what it did for Irma 1974, which is the closest analog with such a track. That make a recurve at that west position, but it can also recent analogs suggest that it will go southwest and being dissipated by Try and Shear.
That's what I think will happen.
But that seems some agencies disagree and still think it will go northeast, and it's clouds. A cloud band, more like something stationed in the front-ish, will bring some heavy showers to the southern coast of China. That's something pretty interesting, which we should see, because such kind of analog is kind of rare. The current analog includes Irma of 1974, Lee, if I remember correctly, 1981 or 91. I remember 1980 something.
Right.
And it occurs at a frequency recently like this. 10 to 17 years, we'll see a storm recurving to a very coast position at the northern part of South China Sea. Well, Rai could be one, but we don't know still. We should see if it's gonna impact later on Vietnam or the South China coast. But I should also still highlight that the Philippines, especially Mindanao, Visayas, is gonna be severely impacted by Rai, as it's expected to make a category 3 peak make landfall, at least, which means 10-minute sustained for estimates. Well, I'm not using Kobe scale. I forgot what it is. Around this intensity, 10-minute 175 kilometers per hour as it makes landfall, which is winds that's very extreme that can some poorly built house will be annihilated, and if you're near the landfall region, you should evacuate, as it is expected to make landfall in the next 24 hours, which time is running short.
Here's the Jtwc forecast cone, the latest from them. They're depicting the storm, of course, at 80 miles per hour, and then it intensifies to 105 there as it strikes probably Dinagat Islands with winds of around 105 miles per hour, which would be 170 kilometers per hour sustained. And then continues to move through those islands, Cebu most notably there, and then onto the northern tip of Palawan, and then out over the South China Sea. Now, they are... I'm going to have to move... Oh, I just about see it there. No, actually, let's just move the map a little bit so I can see what intensity they're going with over there. 95 knots for the second peak, so they're still going for a stronger second peak than the first peak, and that's certainly backed up by models at the moment. But Kenneth, I must ask you about that Category 3 peak, because it's not got much support at the moment. What makes you think it will be stronger than Category 2?
Currently, satellite estimates lies on the range between 70 to 85 knots, which we take the middle range. Let's say it's currently 80 knots. Current intensity more likely. We assume that it is the current case. Okay. So the current main inhibiting factor, as I said before, is still the upper level shear that makes it struggle to open an eye, but satellite estimates is approaching 80 to 90 knots very soon, which if we still have 24 hours, it's very under the current normal development trend. The trend is gonna still remain stable in the last 24 hours, which 20 knots per 24 hour, it will be like 100 knot peak with a 10% uncertainty range, I'll say.
Okay,
Which means
interesting.
it can be anything between 90 to 110 knots at the uncertainty range. But more likely, I'll say, is the 100 to 105 knots, given that I still think it still have a potential to open an eye, although it may be not that good because of the time limit and the upper level shear. But I still think it's still pretty possible still to make a shot being a Category 3 as it continues to move to the west. The recent deceleration could be something that contributes to the reduced rate of intensification because the movement is less effective offsetting the easterly shear because of the displaced upper level anticyclone, which is a big field that enhanced the outflow that makes tropical cyclones to intensify significantly. But it doesn't seem it takes the ideal advantage from this because it displaced. But still, I think it has a pretty good show, Category 3 at Philippines landfall. Then,
Okay.
then go to the South China Sea. As northeast monsoon isn't going down that quick still. It hasn't come down still. The shear in South China Sea is still pretty low. That I agree it facilitates intensification, which makes it rebound. But two things. The first thing is how much it will weaken after it crossed the Philippines. I mean, the rough terrain in the Philippines, well, it does make a huge uncertainty of how much it will weaken. But I mean, I think it will weaken to at least a minimal category 2 as it leaves. And at most, it could be only a category 1, 65 to 70 knots. Then it'll make a second peak much lower. Because the intensification rate aren't going to go that quick to make it a category 3 again. The model's forecast does suggest it's going to be category 3, but I don't see much analogs doing anything higher than category 3. I at most only see category 1
All right,
in the
Kenneth,
central part of the Southern Sea.
take a break for a little while. Let's take a look at the pag-asa warnings there. These are expected to be updated shortly. I've got one eye on that, and I'm sure Zenitsu will tell us when the update's out. But this was the last update showing where the warnings are. Signal 2 warnings there for significant chunks of the southeastern Visayas and the northeastern part of Mindanao. Most of Leyte, the southern part of Samar, and the northern part there of Mindanao. Now, someone did ask earlier whether Surigao Island would be the first to receive the storm. That's quite possible. I believe that's the one that sticks out a little bit there off Mindanao. Yep. So if the storm, I mean, yeah, on the current forecast, that's probably going to get perhaps a landfall. Certainly some strong winds, and they were reporting strong gusts there already. If you've got reports on the ground, it may be beneficial to others, so please send them in along with any questions that you've got. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It will light up for us, and we'll be able to take on any of those. Let's go over to Farhan now and see what you've got for us, Farhan. If you're there. I don't know if you had any mic issues on the way into here as well, so... Okay, perhaps not. Zenitsu, you're with us right now. Anything you'd like to report?
Not right now. I can come with a lot of information once the bulletin is out. But
Yep.
right now it's just a wide amount of areas under signal number 1 and 2, and loads amount of impacts that are possible. There are also storm surge watches in effect for areas across Visayas and Mindanao. They're expecting storm surge sizes of up to 2 meters, which is about 6 feet. That's all for now, but I will come back to you, Nathan, once we have the newest update from pag-asa.
Here's the latest satellite imagery from the rapid scan on Himawari 8, 2.5 minute imagery, showing the water vapor there as it continues from Palau, which it was affecting last night, to the Philippine Islands. And you can see that bank of green on the left hand side, a band there that's just about to move through the southern Visayas there and could cause some significant rainfall. Obviously, the bulk of the storm's ferocity will be in that central core, which is delineated there by that very deep green colour, which is sort of bright a little bit because it's mixed in with the unenhanced infrared, so the bright white of the unenhanced cloud tops mixing in with the deep dark greens of the enhanced version, providing that little effect there. Hoping to see if we can get imagery on the channel 13 infrared as well, the one that we most often show, the one on the bottom left hand side panel, to see if we can show you a close-up of that too. When we get that, we'll show that on the screen. Let's take some questions then, because we had a couple.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Okay.
Nathan. We have a new storm surge warning from pag-asa. They are now expecting actually 3 meters of storm surge along coastlines in eastern Visayas, which is certainly an interesting development. Um, these are potentially life-threatening storm surge heights, and what pag-asa is recommending right now is to cancel all marine activities within the area, stay away from the coast, and to always follow the latest updates of pag-asa.
I'd have thought that would be pretty obvious, but there we have it. Avoid coastal activities. Do we think that there's little to no chance that the signal one will move more north? Is general gist of the question from Bron Jacob.
It will indeed move a bit north. It's going to get closer, and as the diameter remains large, it will indeed go north a bit.
Is Rai in a phase of CCC once again or not?
Well, this has been an FAQ. Actually, in the public chat, I received so many questions from that.
And
because
just remind us what CCC means again, because I've forgotten what it means. I just know what it looks like.
Central cold cover.
So sure, yeah, indeed, essential code cover pattern. So CCC, I believe, it's been the FAQ because I'm aware that SAB satellite analysis branch is making direct fixes, consistently stating that it is a CCC central code cover pattern. But I would like to say that a CCC pattern, it indicates one thing, that if it is over 55 knots, the trend of intensification will be halted, but not an intensification of the gradual trend. It's not a weak system. So under this criteria, and indeed it's the case that it's still roping and developing, and even recently it has signs of success. I mean, a very latest frame, it may have signs of success and is opening an eye, given the substantial improvement microwave imagery does. I disagree with the claim that it is a CCC pattern that intensification phase halted. Although I agree that convergence is consistently roping and pretty much still that very cold negative 90-degree pattern. Continue very cold cloud, but still unable to rob an eye. I agree, but with a very apparent eye pattern at the lower level, and the development it has been made. I disagree that it is a CCC. I still agree that it is a CVO pattern.
Interesting. Do we think that the eye could appear at any time, or what are we expecting here?
Well, it has been something that is attempted to do in recent consistently over the past over 24 hours. But let's see this latest frame. You can see some kind of an infrared eye is starting to it starts to open. As supported by this microwave path showing a more upper level structure, that it is indeed having a better attempt to open an upper level eye, which means something that can be seen, that can be seen in infrared. It is indeed the case, I think. Well, but we should still wait and see, because the shear may still be climbing very slowly. That could do something sneaky that interrupts the development of Rai. Well, we'll wait and see, but in the very recent frames, it is showing a good attempt to actually open an eye, which is even more concerning, because if a storm opens an eye successfully, its intensity can just take off and
course.
go very quick because it's a rather small system that it can intensify pretty significantly if no interruption, which is even more significant threat due to the Philippines.
All right. Well, if the update isn't out yet, and I'm waiting for an indication from Zenitsu there, we'll go to the models at this point, or at least my visualization on the GFS model, which is something I can show readily. This is what we have of the storm at the initiation phase. Let's see what it's initiating the storm at there. Initiates it at 81 miles per hour, so that's pretty much where we're at right now, in line with what the officials are saying. So moving westwards on that initial frame there, and then in the initial 6 to 12 hours, not much strengthening there, only just retaining. What is that noise? Category 1 status, and then heading towards the northwest, and you can just see there it blows up and strengthens quite significantly. There it is at 96 miles per hour, and then into landfall with winds of around 100 to 105 miles per hour according to the GFS. That is a category 2, 170 kilometers per hour. Kenneth suspects that it could be stronger by the time it gets there. Notably, though, the landfall location, an exact landfall there on Surigao Island, and then grazes the northernmost tip of Mindanao, and then moves on to Bohol, just missing the southern tip of Leyte, although they may still get Category 1 winds. Through Bohol, the southern part of Cebu, over Negros, and then out over towards Palawan, striking the northern part of the island there. Just trying to find places. It's obviously north of Puerto Princesa, just looking at the area, probably near a town called Roxas there, and then moving off towards the northwest. Now you can see here as it moves into the South China Sea on towards its second peak, stronger than the first according to GFS as well, at 117 miles per hour, which is category 3, and then retaining strength for a little bit, moving along the coast of Vietnam offshore and then northwards, and GFS says that it will weaken completely and die off as it stalls over the South China Sea. Now that is just one model run. There could be many other scenarios that will transpire, but that's the GFS at the moment. I know, Kenneth, earlier you were showing the model chart, the multi-platform chart. I don't suppose you want to show that again?
Is it this?
Yes, it was.
Yep. So it suggested two things. The model guidance at most top at 100 knots, and then the deep layer shear is slowly increasing, which makes it hold. But as I see the GFS initialization, it isn't that bad. I mean, but it has its wind speed a bit low, and it's less optimistic. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kenneth, but we have the new pag-asa bulletin on Odette.
Okay.
Yep, that's more important right now. Go.
Okay, so basically the updates as of now, we have new signal warnings across Cebu, Bohol, Leyte, southern Leyte, central and southern portions of Samar, eastern Samar, and a huge chunk of northeastern Mindanao. And the signal number 1 warnings have indeed gotten bigger. It has gone a bit more north, towards the southwestern portion of Batangas. We have all of Oriental Mindoro, Occidental Mindoro under those warnings. We also have Camarines Sur, Albay, Sorsogon, Masbate, including Ticao and Boreas Islands, Marinduque, Romblon, southern portion of Quezon, and basically almost all of Visayas is under a signal warning. You also have some additional areas in Mindanao under signal warnings. For example, Davao, um, Misam, the rest of Misamis Oriental, Misamis Occidental. Um, there are parts of northern Zamboanga that are under signal warnings too, and there are also parts of uh, Lanao, that are under signal number one warning. Um, Looking at the forecast, pag-asa has maintained a peak of 155 kilometers per hour for the storm before it makes landfall over the Dinagat Islands, just above Siargao. Um, and pag-asa is expecting um, heavy to intense with at times torrential rainfall over parts of Mindanao tomorrow early morning until Friday. Um, Basically, storm surge reaching up to 3 meters in height may cause flooding across those areas that I had referred to in the storm surge warning that has been issued at 8 p.m. Um, Moderate to high seas are in effect. There's also a gale warning in effect for a lot of seaboards in the Philippines. And all I can say is to all people to listen to pag-asa advice, evacuate if or actually evacuate immediately if you are near those landfall areas around Caraga, Eastern Visayas, and um, well, just just make the necessary preparations if you're just going to get heavy rainfall and stuff. That would be.
I just like to expand on what you just said regarding the preparations. From a social media, I've seen that people around the predicted forecasted impact area has been preparing. There is some posts of people in Tacloban preparing, buying out supplies, which is very good to see, and also very much expected considering that it hasn't been 10 years yet from the people of that city from uh, seeing the absolute destruction Typhoon could make. Now, of course, hopefully Rai wouldn't be that destructive, but it is still important to take every single precaution that you could possibly take because a typhoon is not something to be laughed at. It is a force of nature that if you don't take lightly, it will cost you very, very dearly. And so it's good to see in social media both government agencies and people taking the step necessary on minimizing the impacts of Rai throughout their life and their surroundings.
What I'm garnering from the update, the graphical depiction hasn't appeared just yet, but regarding Cebu Signal 2 warnings, they're saying northern central portions. Do we know exactly how much of the island that is?
About half of the island, the
Okay.
northern half.
As soon as they update the graphic, we'll be able to show that on the air as well. If you do have any questions for us during this stream, you can send them in live. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, like John has. What is the CDPS of Rai? Yesterday it was stage 6. I assume it won't have risen because that was assuming a 115 miles per hour landfall, and that would appear to be very much on the upper end of the expectations. I mean, if we're going to assume the Jtwc's landfall intensity, which was it 105, then it might have gone down a little bit, but I would suggest that stage 6 is probably safe.
Yeah,
Which is not good, by the way.
that's indeed.
Stage 6 on the CDPS 10-tiered scale.
Stage 6 is the point in which our graphical team will put on a text on our product saying that it is a possible life-threatening situation. And so preparations has to be done with urgency and seriousness.
Let's see what else we have right now. Nothing much at the moment, but we'll update those warnings at the bottom of the screen as soon as we're able to. That will be fairly soon, but just a reminder really that the Signal 2 warnings have generally extended further west. They now cover the entirety of Leyte. I think they've extended northwards a bit over Samar, yes. And yes, pretty much the northern half of Cebu. Let's get the new warning map up on the screen now, hopefully. This should work. This is the latest right now as of 8 p.m. this December 15th. The blue Signal 1 warnings, let's just pan up a little bit, have extended to Batangas and the whole of Mindoro. So that's something for everyone to consider right now. Generally, that's more of a northwest expansion of the warnings rather than a westward expansion, which is actually rather interesting. Let's go to Kenneth with more new imagery.
So yes, so recently, the SAB and JTWC has released their default fix, which I have to correct that it is JTWC that claim that this Rai is still having a CCC pattern, which makes the intensification halted, though it is currently not the case. I'll explain more the recent changes and development, which is even more concerning. So over the meanwhile, the SAB it have the estimate of a T5.0, which used to 90 knots, but JWC had a completely lower, which used to 65 knots, a significant difference. Because of discrepancy over the current scene type, which I tend to agree with SAB more. So let me talk about this recent image. You can see that the convection works better, which you can see near the center. There's a more of a subsidence region, which indicates an eye is really opening up, which suggests that it's a higher intensity.
Yep.
And I'll show this further. From this image, you can see a more resounding and more asymmetric, somewhat eye wall structure, which means it's indeed improving. And Ssmis estimate, let me check. Ssmis currently, from this image, Ssmis algorithm suggests an intensity of around 89 knots, with also roughly if I remember correctly, 10 to 11 knots of a root mean square. But it is still, along with a more reliable SAB, and in my opinion, the Vora estimate, as well as ADT and AIDT, AI enhanced ADT, which is a very new product recently from CIMSS, suggests intensity of 85 knots, which seems that 85 to 90 knots seems to be a more better of a consensus satellite estimates in that case, which makes model runs currently somewhat a bit low, initialized a bit low, although the satellite simulation isn't that bad, which means that's why I'll say category 3 may be a more defensible landfall estimate, which is really concerning, because that means I'll say, from my experience, that'll mean a storm surge, considering the rugged terrain, I mean, a very ragged coastline of the Philippines, that could mean a 4-meter storm surge and
Wow.
4 meters of storm surge or more, and gust winds. I mean, surface gusty winds. At least, I mean, at most it can reach 250 kilometers. I mean, surface gust can reach 250, which is pretty extreme damaging winds that anyone near the landfall region must evacuate. And yeah, do anything you can to save your life. It is a particularly life-threatening situation again, because like every time there's a strong typhoon, each year or two, that a strong typhoon hits Philippines.
Now our bottom bar should be up to date with the warnings, which reflects the new map that's shown on the screen, and that's the latest from pag-asa, their 8 p.m. update, which came out not so long ago. You can keep sending in questions whilst we're on the air. I'm not sure how long we're running for, considering that this morning's stream was 90 minutes from Tim, so we're probably going to match that at least. There was a question there, well, just talking about the last stream said that Rai was a stage 5 on the CDPS. I'll do some calculations now and see what we can come up with. In the meantime, I mean, we've got quite a few people in our on-air room here, so I don't suppose anyone else would like to talk to us about various things to do with the storm.
Can I share a sit rep from Southern Leyte?
Absolutely.
It's raining hard in Southern Leyte. I've been getting reports from my weather enthusiast friends in Leyte that they're experiencing some gusty winds and rough conditions due to Rai.
Okay, so that is of no surprise really, with the bands moving into that area right now. The western side there, some of it blowing up minus 80-degree cloud tops, and once again you can see the center of the storm here and the rotation becoming more and more apparent there, with minus 90-degree cloud tops becoming quite common in those yellow areas in the center of the storm. That pink zone is all minus 80-degree cloud tops, which, you know, if you transported this to the Atlantic, that would be extremely rare. The Westpac is just something else, I think, where minus 80-degree cloud tops are common even late in the year, and sometimes especially late in the year. We've seen this quite a lot
Is
with
it me
late
or
season
is the
storms.
ice trying to pop up?
Pardon me?
Is it me or is the ice trying to pop up?
Well, this is what we've been talking about in the last half hour, really.
It is indeed. I think it is trying to opening up an eye. I'll say, currently there's still some overshooting cloud tops.
Yes.
At the southern side, as you can see, there's something particularly colder at the low 80s compared to the overall city, which is very near 90 or even over 90, over negative 90 height. So the overshooting tops may be a bit, or say the overall very high tropopause at the low latitudes, very near the equator, makes the clearing eye job more difficult to clear completely, given the current time limit and the very high tropopause. But and well, I see another. There's another point that storms are doing very cold cloud tops, mainly in the late season. Well, yes, I mean, regardless of northern southern hemisphere, having cold cloud tops persistently has been the case. I mean, not so much occasions have reached a cloud top of over negative 100 degrees. I mean, there's only a few cases, but all in December, January, like Tino 2020. I think Linda 2003 in Southern Hemisphere, as well as Camille 2019. Has been a case of negative 100-degree cloud tops, which shows that such a code is not something very rare, but it also something can be pretty scary. That it can develop into a category 1-2 typhoon very quickly. Although higher end may be more difficult, but still, category 1-2 is already something should not be neglected, because it can still, I mean, hurricane force makes it something very strong that it can just easily, blow down trees and some poorly built structure. It can lift a top completely. Yeah, so it still should be something very concerning and should be taken seriously. Not to mention, Rai currently still has pretty decent potential to make it even stronger.
So on the CDPS scale, high-end stage 5 is what we've got. It's around the border with stage 6, not far off at all. So high-end stage 5 is what it is right now. That's on the CDPS 10-tiered scale, cyclone destruction potential. So certainly significant potential for damage. I think stage 5 enters the catastrophic margin, or at least the devastating margin, in the descriptor. And people sending in a lot of their own reports as well. I'll just read off a few. Gerald Tan says it's now drizzling in Tacloban. There was another comment. John says in Tolosa, Leyte, it has been raining off and on for the last 2 weeks, actually. And if anyone's got reports from on the ground ahead of this storm, maybe of help in some way, start your message with Force 13 all in text. And it will show up in the chat section. So to recap the latest warning information, if you missed it nearer the top of the hour, this is what's happened. Signal 2 warnings and Signal 1 warnings have both been extended sort of northwestwards. You can see the northern half of Cebu, including the city, under Signal 2 warnings now. And the Signal 1 warnings have been extended as far as Batangas and the whole island of Mindoro now. Signal 2 warnings also cover the whole of Leyte and halfway up Samar now. And that is about it in terms of the updates. All of Bohol as well, as before it was only half of the island. Still a comment there, still no rain in Taguig in southern Luzon.
I think Jma has upgraded Rai to 75 knots.
Interesting.
Indeed. 40 meters per second, 75 knot, central pressure of 965 millibars, moving at still west at 20 kilometers an hour or 10 knots, and maximum wind gusts of 55 meters per second or 105 knots.
There's the Jma Cone on the storm right now. Ever since they upgraded the website a while back, we've not been able to show great graphics from Jma because they don't allow image linking anymore, which is a shame. But we've got the Jtwc cone there as well. As you can see, that was their last update when they had 70 knots. If I'm not mistaken, is there a new ATCF number out? Yes, they've upgraded to 80 knots, which is 90 miles per hour, and a pressure of 977. So that's some more information there, that the storm is intensifying and that the Joint Typhoon Warning Center will most likely run with 90 miles per hour That's 150-ish, 145 kilometers per hour, and a pressure of 977. That's still category 1 at the high end of that number. So at this rate, any more strengthening, we could see a category 2, Kenneth.
Yes, I mean, it may have been category 2 right now. Well, I personally think it already reached category. It has already reached category 2. I'll say it's stronger because I mean the main reason I think ATCF has gone with 18 knots is because of the blend of the 5.0 and 4.0 demographics from SAP and Jtwc respectively, which in average yields a 4.5, which is 77 knots, which they choose to round up this time to get an 18 knot estimate. Although I think I actually think that 4.0 estimate from Jtwc is more like an outlier among this current satellite estimate consensus. So I think 85 to 90 knots, I'll say 90 knots right now is a more, I mean, maybe a more reasonable estimate in my opinion.
So, to recap all of the information now, that Signal 2 warnings have been extended northwestward, and that the JTWC and JMA appear to have upgraded the storm a little bit. JTWC just now going with 90 miles per hour sustained winds and a pressure of 977. Let's take a look at more satellite imagery now, looking at the infrared from afar once again, showing you the progression of the storm. Interesting to see how that's been progressing. And back with the close-up imagery in a moment. Well, there's the warning map once again, whilst we wait for that probably updated close-up imagery. There it is. All of those pink areas, minus 80-degree cloud tops. The dark colours on that screen there showing where you're expecting to see significant rain amounts. And that band blowing up as well to its west, and that's actually over land now, over the eastern coast of northern Mindanao. They'll be receiving some significant rainfall right now. And we'll just go and update our little screen on the bottom left hand side as well, which shows the land a little bit better for our viewers. And if you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, we are here for a little while longer. I'm not sure, again, how long we're going to be on the air for during this update. We've not yet made a decision on that. But we will stay after the hour, that's for sure. Real Cruz says, all weather agencies are predicting a Cat 3 to Cat 2 prior to landfall. Is a Cat 5 still possible? Well, we've rated that at less than 1%, so very unlikely. So once again, you can see on the imagery there now in our bottom left hand corner just about where that band is affecting. It's on the coast there, so they'll be receiving some significant rainfall and gusty winds right now in Mindanao. Let's go back to Kenneth's screen.
So, okay, so I've just sketched the key structural messages of what Rai has been doing in the last hour. So, you see there's a huge southern side. There's there's a convection hole. I mean, some weakened convection. Well, but actually not really. That's just some overshooting tops. That means it should above tropopause, such that the temperature in infrared doesn't look that warm, but it's actually the tallest cloud tops actually. But interpolated the LLC from microwave imagery suggests that it's more likely at the 9.2, 9.3 degrees north, 130 east position. It is the true eye that you also see. There's a spot that is currently at the low -80s, which compared to the ring, which currently is at near -90s. It more means that, and you can see the small area of low -80s near the interplay center that I crossed here, right here. It suggests that the eye is slightly clear already. It really started to clear out at here.
Interesting. More comments. Will an eye form? Well, we've sort of established that it's already formed. It's just not fully visible yet.
Yep.
And let's see what else we have. Nothing else just yet. Thank you for tuning in. A moment of lovely there. So to reiterate once again, up to 90 miles per hour on the Jtwc. Well, we're expecting their update will say that a little bit later on. It's blowing up still, looking very good on the imagery, as you can see, noted for very high cloud tops, which have sustained possibly even more than it has done right now. And we expect landfall will be in probably less than 24 hours now. In fact, let me just see if I can establish a vector to just give us an idea of when we might expect landfall if we were to extrapolate the storm's current speed and movement. Obviously that would be just an extrapolation, and I'm just going to figure that out now. So in the last 2 hours the storm has moved about 35 to 40 miles, about 37. So that's in 2 hours, and if I was to keep up that motion, it would end up pretty much making a direct landfall on Surigao Island. That's in 269 miles, so do the math there. Since I'm not fully switched on to figure that out right now. So 74 miles in 4 hours times 4, 16 hours at most if it was to go at the current speed. More questions. What are the chances of category 4? Well, again, we put it on the bottom of the screen every so often. We've put it at around we've put it at around 2%. Although we might want to up that a little bit now by a few percentage points. Farhan?
Yeah, I just saw an interesting comment in the chat of someone mentioning that the storm is the polar opposite of the Odette, the storm named Odette in the Atlantic.
Oh dear.
And interesting to note about that, because this is actually, in terms of pure naming sake, the third Odette of 2021. The first one being Odette in the Australian region, which was the lesser storm that did the Fujiwara with Cyclone Seroja. You probably heard of that storm in the news earlier in the year. And of course, there was Odette in the Atlantic, which, Atlantic, the Atlantic, that's all I'm going to say. And now we have Odette in the Western Pacific. Of course, it's only the Philippine name, but for someone that is interested in naming, for naming's sake, it is pretty neat to have 3 storms with the same name in a single region. Though, of course, that's going to be quite an insignificant fact, considering what is the storm is currently doing and where it's heading to.
So yeah, 3 storms named Odette in 1 year. Good lord. In a moment, I'll bring onto the screen latest rainfall estimates. You'll have to bear with me to get that. This will be satellite derived, so it's only indicative. It's not. It may not be fully accurate, but just to give you a sense of the amount of rainfall that those areas on land will be getting. We'll be getting a super close up of that area shortly, and that's in relation really to that band that's moving through on the western side. So you'll have to bear with me a few moments whilst we get that loaded, but hopefully it won't take too long. Oh, there it is already. That was quick. So this is how it's looking right now in that area. You can see southern Samar, Leyte, Dinagat Island there, Surigao Island, and northern Surigao. And you can see that band that's currently moving through. Now, to give you an idea on the color coding, the rain is measured per hour, and it would help if the bar that I'm supposed to look at actually worked. So yes, the oranges, for instance, if you see some orange there approaching you, that's some areas of 20 millimeters per hour. And you'll see the darkest colors there. In fact, you saw a little frame of black there. If you see any black areas, that's about 60 millimeters per hour or higher. Now obviously it would have to stay over your area for the whole hour for it to be 60 millimeters per hour, but that's the rain rate, which might give you a little bit of indications on how much you might get from this first band. Now the imagery here is running every 15 minutes per frame, so every frame there is 15 minutes, and that band is moving on towards Dinagat Island with the most amount of rainfall there, and that's currently delivering maximums of about, let's see, about 50 millimeters per hour. But you know, you're not going to get that amount in an hour because it's moving over pretty quickly, and the worst of it will probably only take 15 minutes to pass you. So, you know, just something to look at. I can tell you, and I can't show you this, but at the center of the storm, and particularly on the eastern side, that's where the rain rates are the highest. They're off the charts, well above 60 millimeters per hour. So if that continues to be the case when it makes landfall, then the landfall zone will get enormous amounts of rainfall and quite chunky band as well. So it could sustain for maybe 2 hours at the most highest rainfall rates. So that's a guaranteed 100 millimeters wherever the landfall occurs if it stays anything like that. Let's see if we can get any more comments. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. How large is the wind field of this storm currently? According to the Jtwc's last update, they're currently putting it in the northeast quadrant at 80 nautical miles. The southeast is 35, southwest is 70, and northwest is 100. So northwest being the closest one to land, really. At 100 nautical miles, that wind field extends about halfway towards land from where the center currently is, just to give you a reference point. Will the storm increase wind speed before and after landfall? Before landfall, quite easily, and it could well get to 115 miles per hour category 3. It will weaken over the islands, probably by a category, maybe a category and a half. And then into the South China Sea, we expect that it will intensify possibly by 1 to 2 categories and possibly reach its peak intensity there. Any other comments from our team right now as an open floor?
Well, from looking at Twitter, there is a lot of people who think that they are now getting the phone notification that it sent out to the devices about like this warning like rainfall, which is good, which means that people are aware of the dangers, they are being adequately prepared. Another interesting thing that I've seen in Twitter here about someone who I could only assume is quite young, saying that they're feeling quite exhilarated about their first typhoon. How they feel kind of nervous but also excited about going through their first typhoon. And well, my comments on that is that well, although storm tracking and storm chasing can be very exhilarating and exciting, it is not something to be taken lightly. This kind of natural phenomena are extremely powerful and extremely destructive. So, although it is easy to get very excited about storms like this, it is best to view it with an air of caution, an air of respect. Because if you don't respect nature and if you don't respect its power, then it will caught you by surprise. And if it caught you by surprise, it is almost certain that you will be either hurt or even die.
So that's the latest right now. Looking at some general flood advisories as well over large parts of Mindanao and over in western Visayas as well. I can see those are out currently too. So to recap, as you saw on the imagery just before, those Signal 2 warnings which have extended over about half of Samar now. All of Leyte, the northern half of Cebu, the whole of Bohol now, the northern part of Mindanao, namely Misamis Oriental, the eastern part there, the northeasternmost part of Bukidnon, and the northern parts of Surigao, north and south, and Agusan del Sur also. And then those Signal 1 warnings which extend into the northernmost Davao provinces and towards Zamboanga del Norte as well. Northern Palawan, the rest of Cebu, the whole of the islands of Negros, Guimeras, Panay, Masbate, Romblon, Marinduque, the rest of Samar, the whole of Mindoro, Catanduanes, the southern part of the Bicol region, southern Quezon, southeastern Batangas province, Signal 1 warnings, and we expect that they'll continue to extend westwards with the 1s and the 2s. Are they doing 3-hourly updates now, are they?
Yes, they are.
So that means there'll be another update at 11 p.m. We'll be off the air by then. We'll be here for a little while longer, probably for the rest of this hour, to give you plenty more time to get your questions and comments in. More questions here. After landfall, how long will it affect the Philippine Islands? We'll look back at the model run shortly and show you just the time frame of all of that. And even after the landfall, there's a 1% chance can increase the wind speed after landfall in the Philippine Sea before going into the South China Sea. Apparently a comment there. I'm not sure what to make of that. I mean, it's probably going to weaken after landfall. I mean, sometimes you do see storms maintain their strength. There might be a remote possibility that it could strengthen a little bit before reaching Palawan. Let's go back to that last GFS model run then to show you the timings on all of this according to what their output was earlier. So once again, if you haven't seen this yet, it initialized the storm with around 80-mile-an-hour winds, which was correct at the time. Obviously this is back at about 9 a.m. UTC, so that's 4 hours ago. Just bear in mind that the storm has already intensified a little bit to 90 miles per hour according to the ATCF. Now, it moves on towards the Philippines. Oh, I've not got it working here. Hold on a moment. I've got to try and get this back up and running again. You've got that nice little frame to look at least. Okay, so off it goes, and it stays fairly strong and intensifies on approach to landfall there. So you can see just before landfall, the intensity there on the GFS is 103 miles per hour. Although it looks like it could be stronger than that now by the time it gets there. This is around, let's see, 6 a.m. UTC tomorrow. So that is at around, let's see, that's 2 p.m. Philippine time tomorrow. it's calling for landfall. So that's what we're looking at from the GFS, and it's a direct landfall on Surigao Island, and then onto not Dinagat, but just onto the northern tip of Surigao. And that second landfall looks to be occurring at around just before 6 p.m. Philippine time, and then on to Bohol, which makes a category 1 landfall there, and that would be around now in 24 hours time. So that would be at 9 p.m. and then on to Cebu as a category 1. That would be at approximately trying to figure out my timings again, around midnight tomorrow night as a category 1. Then on to Negros Island, which would be a little bit later at around 2 a.m. on what day are we on now? On Friday, around 2 a.m. And then you can see there, in fact, GFS does show that it intensifies over the, is that the Sulu Sea, on the way to Palawan, at 93 miles per hour there. Palawan landfall is a little bit less, 85 miles per hour, and so far they're expecting that landfall to occur on Friday at 10 p.m. Obviously these timings might change, don't put that set in stone. We know these things can change very easily. And then out into the South China Sea, where you can see there it becomes even stronger, reaching its full peak, if this model is correct, at around 115 miles per hour. On its way to Vietnam, but doesn't quite get there. It steers northwards, and towards the end there, it then steers away again from Hainan Island and dies off in the Philippine Sea, which is quite rare in general, but quite common when it occurs at this time of year. So I hope that gives you some perspective on what we're expecting there from the GFS model. Other models say different things. I don't know if the HWRF is still quite a bit stronger, and it went further north yesterday. I don't know what it's saying today. But that's just another brief look at the expectations there on the GFS model. Let's see if we can go back to some live imagery. There's the pag-asa warnings once again. Oh, okay, another question there about what are the sea surface temperatures. We can show that on this map. Let's get some sea surface temperatures. This is pretty much right now. You can just about make out, quite clearly make out actually, the storm, that comma shape there, extending all the way around there. That's mainly the storm's cloud cover, which is reducing those sea surface temperatures underneath, obviously, because of less sunlight. But towards the center of the storm, temperatures, unfortunately, they're only in Fahrenheit on here, but I'll do some conversions to Celsius. 28 degrees Celsius around here. Underneath the cloud, a little bit lower at around 26. And then towards the Philippine coast, you can see they're quite a bit higher again. 28 pushing 29. In the little areas in between, around 28. Towards Palawan, 28. Whoops, wrong button. I'm supposed to be moving the screen. There it goes. Then into the South China Sea, around 28. And then dropping further north, still to around 26, 25. But that'll be enough to kill off the storm along with the other interactions that are in play by the time it gets there. It is quite remarkable that even at this time of year, sea surface temperatures are plenty warm enough to support a tropical cyclone. And if you're thinking about more storms on the way, maybe looking out to sea, still very warm if there was another system that was to form in the same circumstances as Rai. But none are on the forecast yet that we can take seriously, so I wouldn't worry about that. Let's see if we can get some more questions. Nothing right now as we continue looking at the sea surface temperatures. What I can show you actually, well, it will take a little while, is the rainfall expectations. Oh dear, it's having a bit of a nightmare there. We'll show you that shortly once it completes loading. But back to the latest satellite imagery showing those cloud tops that are still blowing up and still minus 90s in a little bit of abundance. Anyone want to tell us about the latest images? Kenneth, are you there? Not just now. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on what they're seeing on the screen. Is the eye clearing or not?
Hello.
Oh, hello. That's
Yep,
Kenneth.
I'm still here. Yep. So it's that well, as you can see in this imagery, it's definitely clearing up, right? It's actually screen shared.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Let's get onto your screen here.
Yep. So.
Oh wow! On your imagery, definitely. Look at that.
Yeah, it's definitely very concerning that it's really starting to clear up. That in some higher res image here, you can see some very tiny red dots. Let me enlarge it to the very largest. You can see some red dots at the center, which is currently where the eye is, which indicates the eye temperature currently is starting to drop. No, it's starting to increase from
Yep.
-80s. Now, that currently already is over -80 degree, I'm aware, which is a sign of the eye really, really cleaning up this time after like a day of struggle. And as I see from various satellite estimates, currently ADT IDT calling 85 knots, but with a more west center location, a bit more west, but not bad, of 85 knot with mean square error, 7 to 12 knots, depends on you're seeing ADT or AIDT. The FORAC morning towards 90 knots. Some microwave estimate even going, SSMIS and EMSU is shooting very high. EMSU calling for 99 knots currently.
Right now.
Yes.
Wow.
Microwave estimates are considerably higher than what I'll suggest, which currently I'll say 19 knots plus or minus 10%. I'll say it's more likely a defensible range, while I'm currently more lean to 90 to 95. 5 knot at the current intensity estimate.
Crikey. So that's quite remarkable. So you would definitely still put a Category 3 landfall in play?
Yes, definitely I'll forecast a Category 3 landfall, at least.
Wow. More questions about storm surge. Do you want to talk about that again? You were saying that, I don't know if it was you or Farhan, someone said that maybe 4 meters possible?
Yeah, my estimate is at the very least 4 meters, with a possibly higher, if it's gonna have a deeper pressure or something, or make landfall in a concave bay, which funnel shape, can amplify the waves. That would cause a higher storm surge.
Now you've got a radar image there as well that might be worth talking about.
Yeah, this is a true radar, which you can see there's some moderate to heavy showers pushing into the Mindanao and the central part, more in the central part, and you can see an even bigger band, even stronger and bigger band of a spiral ring band. It's currently approaching. Currently at 80 to, it's less. 60 to 70 kilometers from land, which such a strong ring band will affect Mindanao, eastern coast of Mindanao. I think since midnight, and such a strong shower, more persistent shower, and possibly this band may start to bring some gale force winds, maybe gale force gusts to Mindanao, along with some heavy showers, I think 30 to 40 millimeters per hour maximum, are starting to affect eastern coast of Mindanao, and then possibly deeper since midnight with escalating winds, of course, still. And I think gale force wind may reach, may really be reached, sustained, and continue to escalate after sunset. No, I mean after midnight. I mean in the morning we'll start seeing some persistent gale to storm force wind, and then later on we'll go to extreme winds near the landfall region.
I'm certainly still hung up on how ominous that imagery looked that the eye appears to be clearing out. Back with your imagery again there, look at that. So that's the definite position of the eye?
The position of the eye, yes. The position, the blue one at 9.3 north. Let me stop the.
But what's going on to the south there?
That is also, I think, it's a bit of a coast, a colder slot. Yeah, but it's more like a convection blast curling from the southern
that's
quarter.
subsidence
It
for
dips
convection.
again, and it's blasting, causing a bit of subsidence nearby because of very strong convection firing.
Okay.
You can see at the southern eye wall, but there's more circular, warmer region is indeed the eye that's currently clear now.
The other voice there was Sohum. What did you want to say?
I wanted to point out that I believe that is subsidence from the cold convection.
Right. Yep, so that's what we're dealing with there. It appears to be subsiding, however, in those latest frames as well. More questions about what the lowest estimated pressure is. I mean, do we agree with the 977 that the Jtwc are going to be putting out?
We honestly do not know because they're merely running with satellite estimates at this time.
Yep. And the question about the wind shear as well.
So wind shear currently is roughly 10 to 15 knots. I mean the deep layer shear here shows 20 knots, but it's just deep layer shear, which just the wind at 850 millibar level subtract that at 250 millibar level. But at this case in Rai, the mid-level shear is a very mild, which did not make significant impact, which will pretty much never have made significant impact to a rise structure.
Kenneth,
the only thing is yes.
If you go back to that multi-platform model image as well, the wind shear there is on a low ebb and perhaps lower than what the models had been anticipating right now.
Can I try to answer this?
Sure.
I believe this is mainly because of its forward motion counteracting the shear vector. The vector is easterly, so the shear is coming in from the east, but the storm's also moving towards the west, so it's moving alongside the shear. So it's subtracting the overall effect of the mid-level shear on the storm. It's keeping it down to manageable levels and allowing the storm to continue its intensification without hindering it too much.
Right. Kenneth?
Yeah, that is very indeed the case that the motion factor is offsetting the current set deep layer shear. The deep layer shear is really only restricted to high levels, which isn't gonna do that much of a structural impact. I mean, the negative impact, structural negative impact, compared to the mid-level shear. So I mean, it may a bit struggle to clear up the eye, but right now I mean, it's been escalating a bit again, so it offset more shear, such that it is being less struggle to open the eye as what it is right now. As you can see in the satellite imagery, it's indeed opening the eye.
Yep, once again, Kenneth's imagery there. What type of infrared imagery is that?
That's called the infrared sandwich enhanced.
Ah.
Yeah.
And can you tell us what the eye temperature is on that frame?
On that frame, let me see.
Because it's still not very discernible on the conventional infrareds that we're showing.
I don't particularly know the spectrum from this from this enhanced, but I choose this because it shows a more more clearer difference between different temperatures of cloud top.
Yes.
But as I see with latest
Easterly
imagery,
wave unfortunately doesn't support IR temperature probing, so unlike real Earth. So
it is starting to show up on the real Earth imagery now that we're looking at on, I think it's band 14 or 13, the enhanced infrared, showing that the eye temperature is probably about -75 compared to the cloud tops around it, which are touching -90. So it's a 15-degree deviation now, potentially.
Yeah, roughly I'll say -70 to -80 range of the eye. With the cloud range certainly exceeding -85. So it really starting to doing its job, making it stronger and making it as a even stronger storm that causing an even more life-threatening situation.
Looking back at the last Jtwc cone, the next one will be out probably after we go off air. But this is what they had at their last update, and perhaps we can interpret little bits about what's happened and how things may change in their next cone. Indeed, they expected that the storm would be 80 knots at 18Z, which is a good 4 hours from now. You could argue that it's got there ahead of schedule, which might mean that the landfall intensity might be bumped up on their forecast next. They're currently going with a 90-knot landfall, which is 170 kilometers per hour sustained, category 2. They might raise that, and then weakening a little bit back down to 90 miles per hour, which is where it is right now. And then actually, at the first time I've clocked this, intensification back to category 2 before hitting Palawan, and then out over the South China Sea, where it remains a strong category 2, although GFS really going for it with a 115 mile an hour category 3, and then really moving northwards, avoiding Vietnam just, although tropical storm force winds might still reach the coast, and then curving northwards. Of course, this cone could still change, and just to remind you, on the Jtwc cones there, the area surrounding it that's filled in a little bit, that denotes the chances of tropical storm force winds reaching you. And so even places like Manila are still in just about inside that shape, although the winds should avoid that area, unless of course it goes further north than unexpectedly. But right now it appears to be on course for a landfall just along the northern tip of Mindanao. Currently the GFS has a landfall squarely over Siargao Island at around, I can't remember how strong it was, but I think it was going with 90 miles per hour landfall. It's likely that it's going to be stronger than that now. We're probably looking at a category 2 landfall quite easily, and maybe a category 3 landfall, and goodness me, maybe the storm might rapidly intensify once this eye clears out. We can't completely rule out a Category 4 landfall. We just can never be sure with this part of the world. The Philippine Sea at any time of year can throw up things like that. So it's really a wait and see thing there. Keep sending in your questions and any observations on the ground if you're in the area. Start your message with Force 13, all in text. It will light up for us. Let's take another look at the satellite-derived rainfall estimates live right now, how that's progressing. This is imagery that comes out every 15 minutes, so it won't always be up to date. I'm just waiting for it to load up on the screen whilst we wait for that. That's that latest imagery from the infrared. Here's the rain rate. So you can see that Surigao Island will be getting some rainfall right now, fairly light, in the, the 5 to 10 millimeters per hour range over the island mostly. Further north, northwest in Dinagat Island, they'll be getting a little bit of a stronger rainfall haul shortly, particularly in the northern part of the island, possibly right now actually, because this latest frame is from, 12:45 actually, so that's 45 minutes ago. So this rain band may well be over southern Leyte by now and will have passed over those islands. What can you see behind it? Not a huge amount right now, but fairly soon, emerging onto the screen, you'll end up seeing the main core of the storm, which at the moment is a very steep gradient from the lighter stuff to the really heavy stuff. And the central core of the storm right now is huge in terms of explosive amounts of rainfall. That's denoted, of course, from cloud tops only, but we can surmise quite confidently that there will be significant amounts of rainfall occurring inside the center of the storm. So the latest frames, also you can see on the western side of that image there as well, Cebu probably getting some significant rainfall amounts right now as well, and extending over Masbate and heading towards eastern Panay, probably going to be getting some rainfall right now, and the southern part of the Bacolod region probably getting a few little isolated high amounts of rain right now. Back to Kenneth's screen with some more encapsulating satellite imagery.
Yep. So indeed, the more recent frames show that the eye temperature really have dropped further, like you just say 75 degrees or maybe even slightly warmer, and some more convection blast touching near negative 100 degrees Celsius is still dropping and persisting over the southern and eastern quadrant, I'll say. Maybe I'll back a bit to forecast again. As I said, I said a bit earlier, I think the current intensity should more lie on 90 knots, maybe 95 knots. This may, based on this shear map, you may only expect a gradual intensification or a better or more rapid intensification, followed by a steady trend or even a bit weakening because of increasing shear. But as I said, deep layer shear is just low level minus upper level, which actually the mid level, which has not been calculated deep layer shear, is not being destructive, not destructive at all, damaging a Rai structure. So if the case is less ideal to Rai, which means the shear is really the case, just only minus the motion factor, like really be 10 to 15 knots, a bit high to a rather small core system. It may be 105 knots. Which means less stronger, but still like 10 to 15 knots increase, picking up the past trend, like 100 knots. The lowest. But if this go ideal, like this year is really just very upper level and does not affect Rai pretty much at all, it will mean a very low 5 knot shear. If things go ideal and go and have a faster trend to intensify than it is at the past 24 hours, which is around 20 to 25 knots. That means a similar trend, 25 knots, but with a short period of time. 18 to 20 hours, which that means from the interpolation from my estimate of 90 to 95 knots, it will really mean well, I remember I said in the yesterday's stream, I said 140, 145 at the very maximum. 140 can really be its maximum. The top echelon it can possibly reach. Still, that the upper echelon forecast of category 4, I still ain't ruled out. It may still really be the case if things go ideal, but a more reasonable forecast will be 105 to 110 knots.
Pretty concerning. Do our team agree with that prognosis?
Well, the skeptical side of me likes to say no, but then again, when it comes to the Western Pacific, we've seen it time and time again, completely blows people expectation out of the water. So the best course of action is to just keep it in mind, but not to think about it too much, because thinking about it too much will probably cause hysteria. And the last thing that you'll need in this kind of situation is hysteria.
Let's take another look for those who have just joined us on the latest warnings that are in effect right now in the Philippines. Signal 2 warnings for the northern part of Mindanao, including Surigao, which could get the landfall, and Dinagat Islands. All of Leyte, the southern half of Samar now roughly, all of Bohol and the northern half of Cebu. And the blue areas there, signal 1 warnings over much of northern Mindanao, extending as far as Zamboanga del Norte, and the southern part of Cebu, the island of Negros, Guimaras, Panay, the rest of Samar, Masbate, Romblon, Mindoro, Marinduque, Catanduanes, and the southern part of the Bicol region, and northern Palawan. And you can see there towards in the Manila direction, extending as far as Batangas, and that could extend further in their next update, which will occur in an hour after we finish the stream at the end of this hour, I think it is, at 11 p.m. Let's see what more questions we've got right now. What will be the accumulated rainfall on the Philippines? Currently, our expected maximums right now are hovering around the 400 millimeter mark, and that would be in that little area in the northern part of Mindoro, mainly the Surigao regions. That will probably be the area that gets the most rainfall. After that, maybe Bohol, Negros probably will get maybe 300 millimeters of rain, and Palawan might get a bit as well. But hopefully it will mostly be areas at sea that get the most rainfall, and I can tell you it's really dumping a lot over the sea area that the center of the storm is over right now. Off the charts rainfall estimates from satellite. Okay, they're showing us once again a animated loop of that imagery, which really shows off the very shallow eye that we can see on the infrared. So shallow that it's barely visible on the usual infrared that we use, which we can show you again here. You can just about see the same thing, that little area of greyish white in the center of the storm. That's where the eye is. And those cloud tops aren't giving up, they're still growing. minus 90s in a lot of those bands, spiral bands near the center of the storm. The eye itself looks like on that satellite imagery around minus 75 degrees. Of course, that would suggest that the eye only extends down to about 30,000 feet, but let's not forget there will be a low level eye in all of that. It just hasn't popped through all the way yet.
I'd just like to give a news update. The mayor of, please forgive me if I pronounce it wrong, Guayan in Eastern Samar has just been on the phone with CNN Philippines, and it is said that 1,280 families has been evacuated to 20 evacuation centers around Eastern Samar. As well as that, the Philippine Red Cross has also reported that they themselves have erected 22 evacuation centers in Eastern Samar and Surigao del Sa, which is going to be very useful because, of course, at this point, all transportation link, land, sea, and the air has been closed out. So people who are still in the area, the only option they have is to go to these evacuation centers since they can't really exit the region by this point, which is very good, of course. As the storm continues at its current pace, it will make landfall in less than 24 hours, and so it is pertinent for people to seek shelters as soon as possible to minimize the effect of the typhoon on themselves.
Now, another question about the CDPS. What will it be when it makes landfall? I mean, I'm not sure at the moment. It would have to strengthen beyond the forecast to actually increase. At the moment, we've got it as a high-end stage 5, just about a point short of stage 6. As it approaches the Philippines, and that would be for Surigao, Siargao Island. I knew I'd get those two confused one day. You can keep sending in your questions. We're here for another just over 15 minutes. What is another question? What is the reason for such cold cloud tops?
That's
I
easy.
know,
That's
I know
Very
you.
flexible person time of year.
I know you explained earlier in the stream, but once again.
It's because near the equator, the height of tropopause, or I say the height of the entire atmosphere, in near the equator is taller than that of at the polar region, as it attached the polar region near the equator. The atmosphere, I mean, the scale height tropopause is really tall. That that the lapse rate is capable for convection to be really cold and negative 90 degrees near negative 100 degrees near the equator, and is the position of Rai, which is still under 10-degree north line. That's why it consistently has a very cold, consistent negative 90-degree cloud tops, having it has it has been over the past 2 to 3 days.
Incidentally, on this imagery that's further out, you can actually see the eye better on the type of imagery that we have on my close-up. Of course, neither of them as good as Kenneth's close-up imagery, but you can see that there, the eye becoming more visible in those later frames. Back to this imagery once again, you can still see it, not quite as clear, and then back to Kenneth's imagery, which shows it once again there in its clearest form, you might say. Although still a bit messy, Kenneth.
Yeah, I mean, it's still it's still a very initial stage. I mean, to really attempt to clear an infrared eye up, It of course is still a bit messy. That it needs more convection blob to rob rob itself up and have a CDO more some uh, symmetry, yeah, symmetrical CDO. I mean, it's usually the case that the CDO consistently keep blood firing up convection, eye temperature significantly fluctuating. It has been the case in category 2, 3, or even category 4 systems. So it's not something that is actually a rare in like high-end category 1 to low-end category 4 systems.
This is Force 13 Live. More information on Typhoon Rai, the international name. Odette is the Philippine name. Signal 2 warnings in effect as it continues to intensify on the way to a potential landfall, which at the moment we are expecting will occur in the evening. I think it was, or in the morning actually, Philippine time. Throughout the day, it will start to affect the Philippine Islands. Obviously, already rainfall starting to occur along the coast of northern Mindanao. We expect that the landfall location will be squarely on Surigao Island, and then on to Dinagat, and then eventually on through the rest of the Visayas region of the Philippines. Right now, once again, let's remind you of the latest warnings that are currently in effect. You can see those Signal 2 warnings that were issued, extended actually at 8 p.m. Philippine time to cover half of the island of Cebu, now the entirety of Bohol, and half of Samar when it was initially just the southern part. And the Signal 1 warnings were extended further west as well, now covering the whole of Mindoro and as far as Batangas on Luzon. If you've got any comments or questions for us before we finish up in just over 15 minutes time, you can send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll be able to get that responded to. And once again, let's have another illustration from that last GFS model run, of which there will be another update in around, let's see, must be a few hours, about 3 hours until the next GFS update. And let's not forget that we will be live to cover the whole landfall event of this storm, probably from 8 a.m. Philippine time tomorrow morning. So make sure you tune in. We'll be able to bring you the very latest when that landfall approaches. But just to show you what's going on with the model run, this is the GFS. It expects that landfall to occur. Oh, it stopped working again for me now. It's a bit finicky sometimes. Okay, here we go. So again, that landfall occurring is a high-end category 1 on their forecast, but we have much reason to believe that it will be stronger than that now, as the storm has started to intensify. It's up to 90 miles per hour and on its way higher. So the landfall there depicted at 2 p.m. Philippine time over Surigao, and then on towards sinks to the south just that little bit to avoid Dinagat, and actually strikes, buttons aren't working properly now, strikes the northern tip of Mindanao instead a little bit later at around 4 p.m. and then moves towards Bohol, which it makes landfall on late in the evening, even later in the evening onto Cebu, then Negros, all as a category 1, and then the Jtwc backing up the idea that it will strengthen straight after that before striking Palawan, and could become a category 2 again as it strikes there, and then strengthening once more in the South China Sea, reaching a peak intensity out over the South China Sea of category 3 status. There it is, 115 miles per hour, then curves towards the north off the coast of Vietnam, and then off towards the northeast and actually dies out over the Philippine Sea. Still could be a wind threat there for Hainan Island and for Vietnam, but obviously the main threat you can see there for the Philippines. Rainfall estimates we expect will probably reach 500 millimeters, 400 millimeters in this little area of Mindanao, the northernmost part there. That's mainly Surigao del Norte. And then obviously that track of the storm there, these areas all along here could probably see 300 millimeters of rain, pushing 400 in some areas. And in the wider areas here around the storm's Winfield, you're probably expecting something like 100 millimeters, quite widespread in those areas. Obviously elevated locations will get more rainfall, and of course stronger wind gusts. But as you saw that storm moving through again, you can see the starting position. It's moved on a little bit now. 90 miles per hour already, which is beating that model, and of course slightly ahead of what the JTWC is saying. Showing that JTWC map once again, just here. They'll update soon. That was their last forecast, calling for 105 miles per hour as it made landfall. We have a lot of comments coming in quite quickly here, so we'll try to get on some questions before we finish up. Start your message with Force 13. Will the eye be a pinhole eye, or will it be a large one?
It seems to be heading towards more on the smaller side based on microwave imagery.
Right.
It could contract to a pinhole in theory as it intensifies, but that's uncertain at this point of time.
Okay. Kenneth, do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Someone else was about to speak there as well. Okay, let's see if we've got any more comments. A question, what will the category of the typhoon be when it makes landfall? I mean, yes, that's under speculation. It's something we've been talking about. We expect that it will probably make landfall as a... Well, it's hard to say right now. Category 2 is probably the middle of the road forecast, but Kenneth, as we've been looking at this, with the eye starting to come out, it could be heralding the beginning of some rapid intensification, maybe.
Yeah, that's indeed with a decent likeliness of really going rapid intensification as it successfully can fight against the shear. If it's successful to fight against the shear, or shear is weaker than expected, it will really have a good shot striking to Category 4 status.
So once again, this is imagery, infrared imagery there showing that the ice starting to come out. This is the geo color, which is very pretty during the day, and even at night you can see all the city lights there, and just how close the storm is starting to get towards the Philippines. To give you some distance estimates right now, that's something we've not done for a while. Just to give you some indications how far it is from land right now. We'll do it in kilometers, obviously. So the closest point of land anywhere right now is the town of, I think it's Caguait or something like that. My pronunciations may be completely wrong. That is 385 kilometers. That's on Mindanao. Further north, obviously, you've got Siargao Island, which is 403 kilometers from the center of the storm right now. Surigao City, 474 kilometers. Then you've got southern Leyte. Maasin is 552. Bohol, the island itself, 571. Cebu City, 655 kilometers away. And Iloilo City is 808 kilometers from the center of the storm right now. We'll be running for a few more minutes here. Just to point out, we will be live from midnight UTC, which is 8 a.m. Philippine time tomorrow morning, with more probably continuous coverage up until landfall by that point, considering that it will be getting pretty close. What are the chances of rapid intensification right now then? We've discussed the possibility, but how big is that possibility? Anyone? Well, I certainly think it's a distinct possibility. It's not something that we can say is absolutely going to happen just yet. I think the next few hours are going to be crucial, but the models have been depicting for quite a while that the last few hours before landfall will also be very important, because the GFS on more than one occasion predicted rapid intensification within 12 hours of landfall. So in the absence of anyone else's input, I hope that answers the question. Going back to Kenneth's imagery there, showing the absolute latest and that eye starting to appear, although Kenneth's still looking a bit messy there. And what exactly is happening there right now?
There's while the eye is slowly clearing out, there's still very multiple small negative over negative 90 degrees cloud tops firing up, which the intense firing up cause small subsidizing regions surround it, because, well, when you have a rapid rising motion, there'll also be something subsidizing nearby to support that rising of the convection blast, which is rapid rising motion. So that's why it in the cloud tops temperature wise, it's showing infrared imagery. It may be looking a bit messy, but overall structural wise, the CDO is improving, being a bit more symmetrical. That's really the case. Although the southern side temperature may look a bit messy, but I mean, southern side is where the cloud tops were generally blowing up for Rai over the last day or two, which is still the case right now. So, but still, I think it is improving, well, substantially or significantly. Yeah.
With the eye temperature now still around minus 75 degrees. Let's see if there's any more questions. Please ping us. Start the message with Force 13. It will light up for us. Apparently, heavy rain has just started. They say they live right at the landfall place. I assume you're talking about Surigao Island, which obviously is in the crosshairs for potential landfall soon. Will the outer rain bands affect Manila?
Yes, it definitely will. And some winds, but some winds, because the influence is, of course, just like most typhoon, is quite massive in comparison to the Philippines. But it shouldn't be anything more than that. It should be just heavy rain that will cause flooding in the streets. But other than that, it shouldn't be anything too worrying.
All right, well, I think that really rounds up everything that we were going to talk about during this live event. I know that a lot of people tuned in towards the end there, and thank you for joining us. Just want to point out that we will be live, possibly for the whole landfall event, starting at 8 a.m. Philippine time tomorrow morning. So please make a note of that if you're looking to tune in again. And of course, subscribe to our channel for more updates throughout this storm and anything that affects the Philippines in the future. But from here, we're finishing up for now in our coverage on the storm. Obviously, there'll be more updates coming up. You can follow our social media accounts on Facebook and Twitter, search Force 13 all in text. You can also join our Discord server, our community full of weather watchers from all around the world. You can find that at discord.gg/Force13. But we're finishing up here now. Thank you for tuning in. Back in the morning with more updates. In the meantime, stay safe. And obviously these warnings are going to expand by the looks of things. Thanks to my team. And that's it from here. I'm not sure if we got to everyone's questions, but there'll be plenty of time at our next stream. From here at Force 13 HQ, we'll see you again soon. Good night.